Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Carolyn Talks. I am your host, film culture critic and journalist Carolyn Hayes, and this is the YouTube channel / podcast where I speak to film creatives around the world about their work, the industry, and what inspires them. And today I'm very happy to be joined by filmmaker Christoffer Rizvanovic Stenbakken to talk about his short film, The Thief, otherwise Anngeerdardardor, which I kind of butcher that.
It's all right.
Which is the very first ever short film shot in East Greenland, and it's about this young boy Kaali who goes on this search for his beloved sled dog, which has been taken, that he believes, and then the truth is revealed that the story isn't quite what he believes it to be. But I think it's a story about East Greenlandic culture, the connection that the local Inuit people have with their sled dogs, and about friendship and also differences, because Kaali is autistic. So it's about how he is seen in his community and how he sees himself in his community. But first of all, thank you so much, Christoffer, for joining me today. Yay.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I usually like to begin my interviews by asking my filmmakers, my guests, how they became involved with filmmaking. So for you, how did you become involved in filmmaking? Because you're originally from East Greenland, and you live in Copenhagen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm from a Danish family in East Greenland, and we go back like 3 generations in Greenland. I think my father grew up on the West Coast, and my upbringing was there, and I feel very closely connected to the place still. How I got into filmmaking is sort of a twisted road sort of thing. It wasn't really a straight line. I didn't go to any film school or anything like that. I got an internship at the Danish Broadcasting Corporation in Denmark, and then I did a lot of stuff, which is actually where I'm at right now. But I did radio and did a lot of sketches, and then I got really interested in doing longer format. I did a children's show, and it was like a part scripted, part non-scripted, and I just really realized that I was really into the scripted part, sort of doing a story and telling it the way I wanted to. So then it sort of hit me in the like a bullet that was what I was supposed to do, and I was like, the first feelings I remember of getting into doing films was like a feeling of being very, very happy that I found what I wanted to do, but then also frustrated that I didn't figure it out earlier before. But that was just, I guess it goes like that for a lot of people. And then from there, I did short films and did a youth TV show. I did a lot of writing, and then I really, really wanted to do something in the place that I'm from, in Eastern Greenland, and I started looking for funding for that.
And you said that you found their career path a little bit late in life. Like, that happens for a lot of people. A lot of filmmakers do kind of they didn't start like filmmaking as a teen or even in their early 20s. A lot of filmmakers start in their 30s and even 40s, because they have it's like a second or even third or fourth career for a lot of people. So you are not, you are not alone.
No, but it's like I've always been very interested in film. I've always been very interested in writing, and that's sort of my way into directing. I think sometimes I'm a screenwriter who's directing. It's not the other way around. It's really the story for me. It's really sort of that's what I feel I'm the best at. But yeah.
And this film, The Thief, is not fully scripted. It's not a fully scripted film. And you mentioned that when you were working at the TV station, you do work with scripted and unscripted projects.
Yeah.
What is it about unscripted projects that made you decide that you wanted to make this short film, unscripted as well?
I think it has to do with like I want to say that the primary goal for doing The Thief was just really doing a film that felt like it came out of Eastern Greenland, like it was a film from that place, and it was a film that takes that's very close to reality and feels very grounded in that place and in the culture and the people there. Because obviously there are films from Greenland, and growing up I also saw films from Greenland, but it's just, to me at least, they always felt like somebody had written a script somewhere else and then went to Greenland and filmed it. So you had the setting was right. Sometimes the language was sort of right, but the stories didn't feel particularly Greenlandic, if that makes sense. And I really wanted to feel, I really wanted this project to feel like it was from there. So that was the starting point. Just to say that I actually went up there with no script, which was a scary thing to do, because it's sort of the opposite of how I normally work. But I didn't want to do something in Copenhagen and then go there and sort of force this story on the place. I wanted to find the place there. So that was the first reason for the unscripted thing, was just I wanted to be real, and the way I think I can make it real is to be very close to reality. So then we spent a lot of time. I was there with two friends that I've known for a very, very long time. One is East Greenlandic and one is from Nuuk, from the west coast of Greenland. And we just spent a very long time with the young people of the town. We were doing workshops, we were doing writing workshops, acting workshops, all kind of stuff, sort of looking for a story that I wanted to do. And then we found this guy, Kamillo Ignatuussen, who plays Kaali in the film, and it's actually sort of a funny story, because I've seen him the year before when I was there doing another project, and he was walking around town with like a huge white dog on a chain. And I just thought, this guy looks really interesting. I want to talk to him. So when we were there doing the year after, doing the workshop with the young people, I was a little bit sad that he didn't show up for any of it. I think we had like 80 or 90 kids through, and wonderful kids and super talented, and a lot of good stories. But I really wanted to talk to him. So we had a whiteboard in the house we stayed at, where we wrote, "Find the dog boy," and we were driving around in a very trashed Letaniva car, like a rusty Russian car. And then I saw him on the street, and I was like, "Stop the car! I need to talk to him." And then we stopped the car, and then I asked him. We said, we're here to do a film project with the young people of Tasiilaq, and I asked him if he wanted to talk to us, and he was like, "No." I was like, "Okay, fair enough." But then he wanted to play a song for us on guitar, and I was like, "Okay, sure, we can do that." And then he told the real story. And then I looked around at the other, and everybody was sort of crying, had tears in the eyes, and I was like, "Okay, maybe this is the story. Maybe there's something here." So I'm on a total goose chase. I know. I'm sorry.
No, I love
but it was
just
that's the reason why it's unscripted. Because I wanted to be close to reality, and then I found a story there from just spending a lot of time with the young folks, and then we changed stuff, and the real dog unfortunately died, and I knew right away that I didn't want that as an ending for the film. But we sort of, I think I had like one page of handwritten scenes and turning points and stuff, and that was it. The rest was improvised.
We'll definitely get into that, but I do have to ask, how did you get funding for a film that had no script?
Yeah, and that's I'd say in general it's very difficult to get funding for films in Greenland. I'm actually quite proud that the film is 100% Greenlandic funded. It's quite small Greenlandic funds who gave us, compared to their size, quite big amounts. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money, but it was small funds, and the funding was really for sort of the for going there and finding a story, and and it felt like a lot of trust, to be honest, and I really didn't want to let that trust down. And not a lot of. I mean, like you said, the first short film out of East Greenland. I mean, there's not a lot of media coming out of there. There's not a lot of there are no newspapers, no radio stations, no sort of way of telling your own stories in that place. There's not even a written language. Like, so how do you tell your side of the story, right? So that felt like a really big responsibility, and I really wanted to make sure that I did that as good as I possibly could.
Yeah, because the thing is, because I was doing a little bit of research, and when I was trying to do research on East Greenland, like most of the stuff that was coming up online is like related to tourism. Like people going on like sled tours, like photography tours, because it's a beautiful landscape. And like a lot of nature photographers and documentarians go there. And adventurers, like people who want to go, who love going to like remote places that work for like vacations and tours and stuff. And that's what a lot of the information I was trying to find. And I did find information on like the Inuit people and talking about the history of East Greenland and like the settlements and everything. But I just thought it was interesting that the first things that were coming up online, based on the search engine I used, which was Yahoo, was related to tourism. And then I thought it was interesting. And
it's a big industry there. I mean, a lot of people make their living from tourism in Eastern Greenland. It's a very small population. It's a different language, different cultures in a lot of aspects, than the West Coast, than the big cities in the West Coast of Greenland. I mean, I know from the big, like I know the place very intimately. I could draw a map of the town with my eyes closed, and a lot of people know me there also. And I think that's why I felt like I had a lot of trust in the project. But I knew from the beginning that I didn't want to do something that was like a tourism advertisement. I didn't. A lot of films about Greenland are about like ice and fjords and glaciers and mountains, and I didn't want to do a film about that stuff. It's not super interesting to me. I wanted to do a film about what I find the most interesting about Greenland, which is the Greenlanders and Greenlandic culture and the Greenlandic mindset, and I mean, on some points, like you could say this probably about everywhere in the world, but on some points very different than the rest of the world, but on a lot of points very similar also. I wanted, that was my focus. I didn't want to do another expedition film or something like that.
No, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that the film is very much about Greenland and Greenlandic young people and their culture, because you're paying attention to the connection that the Inuit have with their sled dogs, and showing, and you're talking about the economy, how the economy is changing, because what happens with Kaali, who's played by Kamillo Ignatuussen, his dog goes missing, and he's convinced that his dog has been kidnapped, that someone has taken his dog. And the first interaction he has after he realizes that his dog is missing is he goes to look for his dad, and his dad. And again, you said it's not scripted, so it's interesting to me, like how the dialogue in the film develops, because he tells his dad that he wants to look for his dog, and his dad is, well, I'm working. He's like, but this dog is more important to me. He's like, this dog is important to me, so why can't you come and help me look for this dog? And his dad, me as an adult, I can understand his dad saying, I have work. We can't really look for the dog after work.
Yeah.
But Kaali is like, he's insistent. Again, he's a child. He's a teenager, but he's autistic, and he's insistent that we look for the dog now because this dog is important to me. So even in that dynamic alone, you're getting a sense of how like his connection to the dog isn't the same that his dad isn't the same connection his dad has to the dog. And then when he goes and gets like his friend Bartilaa, like, and other people that he meets along the way, like, no one has the same connection to the dog and to the love of the dog that Kaali has.
Yeah.
And so in the reading that I was looking at, I did do some reading on like the connection that the East Greenlanders have with their dogs, and these dogs are working dogs. You know, they're pets, but they're more working dogs. So everyone else is looking at this dog as a working dog. It's not a pet.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that, about how just this aspect of the film develops, because you said you have no script. So talk about working with Kamillo and the cast and figuring out how are you going to get the dynamic of what this dog represents to East Greenlanders.
Well, the dog represents the same thing that his real dog represented to him. Like this is the reason for it being that way in the film is that it's the typical way that people have a relationship to dogs, as you say, as a working animal. It's not a pet. It's not a very intimate relationship. It's as a working animal and a means of getting an income, be it hunting or ice fishing or driving tourists around. But Kaali's relationship is different in that it's like it's a much more sort of close pet-like loving relationship, and the reason for that was just that when he told the real story, because his family moved from a small settlement outside of Tasiilaq, and then they came in and he brought some of his dogs, and he had the dog, and he was very close to it. Like he was that was why actually one of the reasons I was interested in him, seeing him walking around with a dog. I realize now, like a person walking a dog, it sounds very normal, but in that place it's not very normal. It's very strange to be walking your dog around like it's a pet. And that was one of the attractions for me in it. But like in terms of how it was working with them, I think we didn't do, the lines were I mean 95% improvised, and to some degree I think it's easier to work with untrained actors in that way, to give them a lot of wiggle room and not force lines on them, but like only under the condition that they know the world very intimately and know the sort of emotional steps of the story very intimately. And I could do that because because Kamillo knew those steps because he had lost his dog in real life. So he sort of, and then of course there are dangers in it also. Like the first time in a scene you tell them, I really like this take, then it becomes very difficult to get them to try something different, basically, because he liked it, we'll do that over and over again, and and you want to sort of try and get variation in and secure you have varied material for the editing room.
So because this is a true story that Kamillo himself experienced, what was it like for you as a director, guiding him in the fictional version of this real life? Because if he has this emotional connection to the story, is this something that you worked up with him, for instance, in the workshops that you mentioned, so that he realizes we are telling your story, but this is still a fictional version of that story, so that he doesn't get lost in it completely?
It's a very good question. And I think it was a very sort of, it was a tightrope that we had to walk, because I think, I mean, I want to make a point on sort of protecting your actors or protecting the people that you're working with, because that, I mean, to me, it would be very difficult to do a documentary, I think, in a place like Tasiilaq and East Greenland in general. And the reason for that is that the communities are so small. So if you sort of put somebody's life and in some intimate moments and some very difficult choices or whatever on display, then you put it on display and then you leave. And you don't maybe come back in the next year or something, but that person has had his or her life put on display in a very small place where there's you can't really move if you don't like the consequences of what you did. And I knew of some documentaries that had been done there where I thought that the consequences for the people who took part in those documentaries were unfair, and I didn't want that responsibility. I didn't want to, especially working with young people, I didn't want to come in, expose somebody and then leave. I wanted to take that responsibility very seriously, and to me, fiction is a way of doing that. Fiction to me is a way of having like an arm's length on stuff. So just the point is that those were all in my head, walking that tightrope with what's real, what's not real. And it was always a negotiation with Kamillo and with everybody, like what can we use and what can't we use? And we made agreements that, for example, at every screenings I'm at, I have to say that he's not unpopular in town in real life. He's actually a pretty well-liked guy. I was like, okay. And then he did really go to special ed class, but I don't think he has autism. I mean, I don't think so I was like, can I use that? And then we talked and he was okay with that. But I mean, so it was like, he's not playing himself, obviously. He's playing a parallel universe version. He's playing the version of himself that this fictional story requires. But I think it makes it a lot easier because we premiered the film at the Berlin Film Festival, but before that, I actually had sort of a secret pre-premiere at the Youth Culture Center in town. And it was very easy because everybody came in knowing that this is a fiction. This is not me showing vulnerable moments from Kamillo's real life. This is us collaborating on doing a fiction based in reality. And it's just a very nice, like I said, arm's length thing. And then there are so many gifts in it also. There's so many things that I would never had thought of and wouldn't have written if I'd done my script in advance, or even in the like, for example, he was singing for the dog because he did that with his dog in real life, with his real dog. And then I was like, I think we should include it. And he was like, no, he didn't know, maybe it would be embarrassing. And then but that was just maybe me convincing him that it wasn't. And then another fun thing I thought was the praying scene, because he is he is sort of pretty devout Christian in real life, and he did a lot of praying in real life, and I wanted to include that also, but then he was like, no, he didn't want to pray if he didn't want to pray for something that he didn't meant. He couldn't act that. And then I was like, okay, fair enough, I can respect that. But also I want the scene, and I thought it would be really nice to have in the film. So we did a compromise, which is just I was allowed to film him praying for real. And I did that. That's the image part of the praying scene. And then afterward, he did, he just whispered, not praying, but he just whispered the lines that I put under the praying scene as his praying. So that was sort of that was the compromise there.
How old is he?
He was I think he was 17 at the time of filming.
Okay, so the reason I asked is only because his age is relevant to the story because it's about the young people of Tasiilaq. But I just think it's interesting that at that age he knows exactly what as a performer he wants to do and what he doesn't want to do. And so I think that's very impressive, and that again, because all of this entire film is unscripted, that all of the kids and boys, they were all boys. I noticed there weren't any young girls. But like that they all just I think they did a pretty good job for this story because it's unscripted, and it's a story that they are, again, as I mentioned, are familiar with because it is Kamillo's real story. But they just they trusted you and the crew to let the story go where it needed to go. Because there is a scene that when Kamillo becomes upset, where they meet some of the young boys, and one of them makes a really crude comment about his relationship with his dog. And when that happened, I had to remind myself, wait, this film is unscripted. And then he was walking away, like Bartilaa's like, let's walk away, just walk away, which is a mature moment. And then like one of the other boys makes a comment about Kaali's his intellect, says what is a slur to me. And he goes back and he's like, you know what?
It's an absolute slur. I agree.
I know, right? And he goes back and he's like, you know what? That's it. Let's fight. And he goes.
So
I wanted to ask you about that because the film is unscripted, I'm wondering how you as a director manage a scene like that. Like how that comes about and how you manage it.
Yeah. So he was very good at sort of saying what he was up for and what he wasn't up for, and we had a lot of discussions about setting boundaries, and I mean, it says in the end of the film that the film is a collaboration, that the film is made in collaboration with the young people of Tasiilaq, and I really mean that on the deepest level. Like it's to me, it's sincerely how the film was made, that they bear the bulk of the honor for the film being the way it is, because they really took a very big part obviously in front of the camera, also behind the camera, in shaping the thing. And a lot of times I felt more like sort of a weird doula, like somebody helping giving birth to something, which was a very cool position to be in. And I mean, the scenes also were a lot of jamming. I mean, obviously, I had the overview in the sense that I knew, because we tried to shoot it chronologically, but we couldn't do all of it that way. You never can, although it's every director's dream to do so. I don't know how you get that to work, but I had the overview in terms of where the story was going, where we were coming from, and also to make sure that every scene had sort of was efficient dramatically and had some turning points and stuff like that. But besides that, I feel like we just really sort of jammed it up on the spot, and they were really good at coming up with insults and coming up with terrible things to hurl at Kaali, and it helped that they knew each other very well. Of course, they were also, I mean, they had great confidence in each other, and there was a nice vibe on the set, despite what it may look like in the film. That part really did feel like. But I'm really glad. It's something I hear often, that they feel like it's a documentary almost, and I take that as the highest compliment, because then to me, I think then we succeeded in making something that at least feels true. But the stones are not. The stones are like, it's like tape for when you're. No, it's we did like tape, balls of tape, like paper tape when you're painting your around your outlets in your house and spray painted them brown and black and rolled them around in some sand. That's what they're throwing around.
Yeah, because when that scene happened, yeah, I hated hearing them say that, but I'm like, yeah, young people today are still very insulting to people that they perceive as different, and that is something that the film is about. It's about differences. It's about not only just Kaali's differences to people, but the differences in how he treats the dog versus how everyone else sees the dog, and the differences in like, I kind of see it as it's also a reference to like modern culture versus traditional Inuit culture. Like the dad is working in a mechanic shop, so he's working on vehicles, he's working on cars. Whereas like the traditional mode of like Inuit people before was like the sleds, and like carts and stuff. So like there's all of these, I think, really good juxtapositions in how you look at how people are treated based on like how they see the world. And so like Kaali, he sees the world very differently to everyone else around him, and like he's judged for that.
Yeah, and I mean that's for sure. That's one lens to see the film through. That it's sort of it's traditional versus modern, but I think it's universal. I think it's always been that everywhere in the world that it's very different to be very difficult to be different, and people, everybody, and also kids can be very tough, very cruel to each other, and
oh my God.
yeah, they can be so mean. And I didn't want to sugarcoat that fact. I didn't want to sort of, because it's when it comes to sledding dogs and dog sledding, it's very easy to do sort of a Disneyfication of the thing, and and that didn't feel true to me because I mean, it's a very beautiful, very nice place on Earth. It's a Tasiilaq. I mean, it's a beautiful culture, beautiful, warm, welcoming people. But like everywhere, people can be mean and people can be tough and people can say bigot stuff and stuff like that. It's a part of that place as well as everywhere else in the world. To me, that's the universal thing about the film.
It is. Trust me, I used to work with kids professionally, so like,
yeah,
I know how mean children can be, and I'm on social media way too much, so I do see like how people are very cruel to people who are different. I want to talk a little bit about the about Kaali's best friend, Bartilaa, who's played by Mikkel Paalu Bianco. And he has an interesting dynamic with Kaali because he's the person that Kaali goes to after his dad can't help. He's like, I need you to help me. So he walks around the village looking for this dog. And then Kaali finds the dog and he walks away and he leaves and he leaves Bartilaa in a little bit of trouble, and he's walks away, he's like, well, and then so after Bartila's like, well, you left me, he's like, well, I found the dog. And that was the objective, right? He's like, he has a wrong track mind. He's like, we found the dog. So that was what we came here to do. But I like that that Bartilaa is like a very honest person with Kaali because everybody else that he interacted with, like especially his dad, wasn't telling him the truth. The dad knew what he had done and he didn't say, and he was kind of like pushing off. But once Bartilaa figured out, he's like, this is the reality. This is what happened. He's like, you are the thief. You're the thief in this situation. And I gotta say for that, for Mikkel, the way he actually plays off that sequence is actually very mature acting because his body language and the way he's holding the cup with his hand in his pocket. I was like, that's like that's like an actual, that's very well. He did that, I actually think, very well. And the way he just looks around and everything was like, look at you. You got potential, son.
That's nice. I hate that slush ice. If I could change one thing in the film, I would take that slush ice.
I was wondering where it came from. I was like, this is random. But
that's a good question. It's another idea that came from them. And at the moment, I thought it worked. But then in editing, I was like, Jesus, I really wish I hadn't. I didn't, because like the logic of it was that he had like he'd gotten a strong worded talking to by the dog owner, and then it was sort of, I guess it was supposed to be sort of a a little mental health treat he got on the way back, that he got a slush ice. To me, it just takes it takes some focus. But I mean, it's still it's one of the things that happened in the moment, and so be it. No, but I mean, the Bartilaa, the character there, I think he takes a lot of abuse during the film. Also, I think the Gary, the character, is not necessarily very nice to him, right? So that's the choice I wanted him to have to make in the end. It's between the dog or the friendship. So I guess that is a little Disney anyway. I guess.
No. I think it's a very real life situation, because we are talking about how dogs are treated in that culture, and so he did have to make a choice. If he doesn't return the dog, that could cause problems not only for his relationship with Bartilaa, but also with his father and his father's connection to the man. Because it was a deal, it was an honest trade. And so, like, I didn't see it as kind of like any Disney thing. I'm like, this is very mature and a very realistic situation. But the thing is like the thing that I saw it as is like how in his mind, again, this is talking about how children see things. Like in his mind, he's looking, I'm trading one friend for another, and I kind of saw it as like that's how a child will see. A child is like, if I have to take back this dog, and if I don't take back this dog, I can lose my relationship with Bartilaa. But in my head, it was like thinking that that's how a child would see it. That's how a teenager would see it, because teenagers and children can be very literal. They're not thinking more in like a more abstract sense. But I like that Bartilaa, when he goes up to Bartila's like, "Why are you here? Why? Like, did you forget what you did to me?" And like the cut was random. I was wondering, where did this slushy come from? But I like how it came off, because it played as a very mature scene. Like you can tell that this is where Bartilaa is more emotionally mature.
Yeah, he's had enough. That's the end of the road for him, like, unless something gives.
Right? He's like, I walked all over this village with you. My feet was hurting. I got roughed up, and you walked away and you left me. So like, if he was an adult, you would imagine it with a coffee. He would be a coffee cup. He would be holding a setup like a.
No, I'm also glad that the character has this moment where he gets the chance to stand up for himself, because he has taken a lot of. I mean, he's taking some abuse from Kaali during the film, and he's the one getting caught also, of course. Yeah.
We'll begin to wrap it now, because as you mentioned, you have to go soon. But one of the last things I do want to ask you, I want to ask now about a little bit about the technical aspects of the film, because like with this area of East Greenland, it's not like flat land. Like there's a lot of going up and down like rocky hills, and you're dealing with the dogs, and like you see like the different communities with the dogs, and like there's this sequence where Kaali begins howling, and he starts the entire dog population just howling and barking. And as a dog lover, I love that, because I have always wanted to do that. And huskies, and like there are like the Icelandic sled dogs are a very specific breed of husky or dog. But I love huskies because I call them the drama queens of the canine world. So I wanted to ask you about that sequence and about working with your sound designer and the sound recordist, particularly for that, because like that would I imagine you'd be like, oh, this sounds beautiful, and then you'd be like, wait, how are we gonna handle this technically? Because it could throw off like the audio for the recording and everything.
Yeah, the idea for the scene came just out of jamming it with the boys as well. It was like something that he had done and thought was cool, and I thought it was cool. So just definitely let's put it in the film. And to me, it was also about like showing this kid who's not very good with people, but is very good with animals, with dogs. I thought there was a nice distinction in that character, and needed also for the choice at the end. So we went there to do the scene, and it didn't work. Like they weren't howling, so he was just woo, and nothing happened, and that was really annoying. And we were kind of running out of time before the DOP had to fly. I did a little pickup myself, and I'm not a very good photographer in any sense. But then we found this sort of hack, which is that every Wednesday there's an alarm, a sound alarm going on off in all of town, which just like they're testing like a storm warning system via some loudspeakers around town. And when that happens, the dogs are always howling. So we just went out there with the sound recordist, and then we waited till the alarm was off, and we got all the howling. But yeah. And then I think we did some pickups there of them howling also. I just want to add, because you said like the terrain and it's just so nice. Like when you're used to filming in Denmark where everything is absolutely flat, it's just so nice to be able to do some horizontal movement, some horizontal camera stuff and blocking. And it is, the whole town is just up and down hills and up and down cliff sides almost.
So, it gives you more variety for different types of shots and like the landscape and the lighting, right? Because the lighting is very different, and the film is very much, to me, looks very natural with regards to how it's lit. Like the cinematography looks very natural. It doesn't look like super edited or anything, and I like that because it's about, again, these real, as you said, you don't want the film to look like anything that's like super commercialized, like it's some kind of tourist spot or kind of tourist thing. So it looks very real, and like the colors look very matches the terrain. It is the community, you know. It's what it looks like.
And there is a very practical reason for that also, is that we didn't have money to get a big to get big lamps or light technicians or stuff like that. I think we were 4 people behind the camera most of the time when we were shooting. But yeah, I tried to be relatively close to the characters whenever it made sense. I wanted the film really to be about the characters and not film a lot of landscape and a lot of mountain and ice. And I feel like maybe I failed miserably at that, because one of the things that people point out actually is the that it's beautiful there. But mountains are pretty difficult to hide, I guess.
No, I like how the film looks. It looks very realistic. And
no, I like it also. It's just we try to not do a lot of landscape stuff. Yeah. But in my mind, it's the most beautiful town of Greenland. So
I would love to go there one day, because there is another filmmaker that I interviewed who lives in Denmark as well, Rebecca Prusen, and I interviewed her for her short film Ivalu. So like that is also set in East Greenland. So like I would love to visit there one day and to see like how filmmakers are filming the communities, you know. Like I think it's great that we have like such a variety in how it looks on screen, because your film does visually look different to how hers look, and I think that's great, because it shows like you're showing like East Greenland is more than what you might see in like the tour on like the tourist websites that I saw, you know. Where
but that's the Anngeerdardardor and people who Kreutzmann one, I think.
Yeah, it came out in 2023.
That's on the west coast actually, but
Oh, so that's on the opposite side. So that's on the opposite side. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would love to come to Greenland.
Not that I think not that a lot of people can tell, but
no. No, I'm thinking about it. The tourist is a little bit different, but yeah, no, I would love to come to Greenland one day. It's on my bucket list, you know. Like everyone was supposed to go see the Aurora Borealis. I'm like, I want to go to like East Greenland too and see this.
Yeah. You definitely should. It's a one in a lifetime experience for sure. Very beautiful and very, very safe, lovely, warm, not in terms of temperature outside necessarily, but in terms of mindset and culture. Very warm place.
And so my last question for you, in the process of making this film and everything that is completed, is screening, is now on the WeShort's website, everything, what is the biggest lesson that this entire project has taught you about filmmaking and about yourself as a filmmaker?
The biggest lesson, I think I know the thing that I'm most proud of is showing the talent and the potential of the young people of my hometown. That's the thing that has the most emotional impact on me for the film doing as well in the world as it is right now. I'm really proud of that on my own, but especially on their behalf. And I love doing posts on like the town Facebook site for people to see, and people like to see the film go around the world. That's on an emotional level. That's the way biggest thing for me. I guess the film really learned I learned some valuable lessons, I think, about letting go of control a little bit. Because when you're doing film there are so many factors. Climate, weather-wise, culturally, logistically, like infrastructurally, just everything that makes normal, set in stone, heavy film production, I'd say, impossible. So you have to sort of go with the gifts that you get and be very flexible, be very flexible in the way you work. And I think that was very healthy for me going on to other projects. To trust more in the process, trust more in my collaborators and in the actors also, and just generally in the truth of the place and the scene and stuff like that. I think I won a lot on just, yeah. I think that was probably the biggest professional or technical thing that I learned from that project. I think so.
Yeah, there's gifts in the unexpected, and like every challenge is a learning experience. It sounds a bit cheesy to say, but that is, like we grow from our mistakes, and like what, sometimes the things you don't plan for, the things that are the best things to happen. But thank you.
And in Greenland, in East Greenland, most things that come are pretty unexpected. I just want to say that, like, the way we did this was just so punk and so like it was just rock and roll. We were shooting when the weather was the one we wanted, and they were just driving around town. He didn't have a phone, so it was just going to the football fields and asking, "Hey, do you know where Kamillo is? He's probably down on the harbor, going down there. Kamillo was shooting," and then going out and shooting a scene. So it's just very, very ad hoc and very liberating, extremely liberating.
And that's interesting. And it is liberating. It's interesting because the film is literally set in one day, right? But as you said, like sometimes is you can't film chronologically. You got to go.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. But congratulations to you, Christoffer, and to Camillo and Mikkel and all the cast and crew. I think everyone did a fantastic job with this film.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a
real
pleasure.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy day for talking with me.
No, it was a good time. It was very nice.
I'm glad. And I am going to go walk my own dog now because she was looking at me and now she's walked away, so I know she's like judging me. But thank you so much. And have a good evening.
Yeah, it can be very judgmental.
I always
personality.
I always say this dog behaves more like a cat than a dog, and yeah, she knows how to sit and just stare at me, and I'm like, okay, I get it. You're judging me. But
time to let the dog out.
Yeah, I have to go walk her and then come back and do some editing myself. So yeah, but congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Talk to you. Bye.
Bye.